Hello, Pennsylvania, and welcome back to another episode of Things That Matter. I'm Gary Sutton. I'm alongside Charlie Drew. He's running for governor here in the state of Pennsylvania. And strangely enough, this week is Masters Week if you're a golfer out there anywhere in Pennsylvania. I know we have a few because we have a few good golf courses out there. But a lot of you are watching the saga of Tiger Woods coming back from 14 months off from a terrible injury, working his way back, and we're watching him kind of get out there and do something no one thought he would ever do again, which was play golf. Certainly a challenge, and challenge is the word for today, Charlie. And much as Tiger Woods is coming back from the challenge, walking a golf course again, trying to achieve at a high level, I think in kind of a segue, Pennsylvania is doing the same thing right now. We've had 2 years of COVID. We're coming back from being hurt pretty badly, a lot of businesses especially, and people trying to come back not only physically with reestablishing businesses, but also kind of spiritually and psychologically a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about challenges today.
Well, Gary, you are the great golfer. I'm a unrepentant hacker, so you follow Tiger Woods in his career much more closely than I do, so I assume that the injury we're talking about is not the one inflicted at the end of his wife's 5-iron.
Exactly, yeah. It's the one that happened with a car accident about 14 months ago in L.A., yeah.
No, this was a serious injury, and as with any other chronic or debilitating injury, coming back takes some time, takes some dedication, takes some effort, takes some work. And we've got to do those things in Pennsylvania because Tom Wolf, with his lockdowns and shutdowns, really crippled small business here in Pennsylvania. I'm a small business person,
right,
as you know, and I've watched others in small business, many of whom aren't coming back. And that's a tragedy beyond recognition. It really is, Gary. I mean, small business is the backbone of our economy, the great job creator of Pennsylvania and the nation. And here was a situation where a governor, through his edicts and mandates, locked them down, shut them down, and put them out of business. So, yeah, that's a big challenge for Pennsylvania. It's a challenge I want to help overcome.
Charlie, when we look back at the alternative to that, a lot of us said, let us handle our thing. Let us take care of it. Let us figure out what the right thing is to do. You know, it wasn't like government had a great reputation on getting things done before that. So what do? We go into that, we say, okay, we're not sure what's going on. We're not sure what this whole COVID thing's all about. Let's take a look at it. We'll give ourselves a couple weeks, which is what it was supposed to be. Turned out to be a couple years, and we turned to government. Why do we do that? Why don't we turn back to ourselves? We're independent, we're freedom-loving, we have liberty. Why do we turn back to that, it seems, way too often?
Well, why don't we? A lot of us did,
yeah,
but a lot didn't, and that's really very disturbing on a lot of levels. You know, the whole mentality of big government is the answer, big government is the solution, the experts are the people that we are to follow, is completely antithetical to the American way of life that brought us to be the greatest nation in the world. You know, throughout the pandemic, I said, trust the science. I said, well, I'll trust the science, but I don't trust Rachel Levine.
Right.
I didn't, and I still don't. And I think there is where the problem really lay. We had experts who really weren't experts telling us what to do, how to live our lives, et cetera. And the real model should have been giving us good information and then allowing us to decide for ourselves what was better for us, for our futures, for our children, and our families.
And yet the way it was all handled was so divisive. You know, we went to the mask, the anti-mask, the vaccine, the anti-vaccine. And we went into all that when it really wasn't necessary. And it seems to me, you're running for governor, a governor's job should be to unite, not to blame, not to, take a side, not to have an agenda, not to talk about some unnamed experts out there, but to share information, educate, and as you said, give us choices to make, because that's what we do best. Less government, better choices are made by the individuals, and it's going to be more of an organic kind of movement rather than a contrived kind of movement that comes from politics.
Well, the governor's job is to unite, and I think you saw some models, Gary, that were much better than what Tom Wolf and his political hatchet man, Josh Shapiro, did here in Pennsylvania. You had Ron DeSantis in Florida, you had Kristi Noem in South Dakota, you had other governors around the country who just chose a very, very different path and did so successfully. Early on, I had a friend who said, what a blankety, blankety, blanky Ron DeSantis is. They're not saying that anymore.
Right. So what did he do? What was the prescription that he gave us there from just a capsule?
In a word, freedom, individual liberty, and giving people good information and then allowing them to decide for themselves what was best for them, for their families, for their communities, etc.
I was at a restaurant last night, and I was talking to a guy, and he said, it's a very successful restaurant, one of the best steak places in the area here. And he said, I said, how's business? He goes, going pretty well now. But then he told me about what's going on underneath and how hard it is now to run a business and all the things that are in the way, from tankers parked off California to companies that can't get enough people to load trucks to all kinds of things. What would you do as governor to try to make things better in this situation here in Pennsylvania for the business owner who's, on the surface, it's like the swan. Underneath, they're paddling like crazy to try to get it done a different way.
You can't find people to take the jobs in a restaurant. I mean, forget about, tankers in California. You can't find a workforce here because we made the difference between working and not working, not worth working for. And I mean, that's a really troubling thing, Gary, when it's easier to stay home and not work because you're getting a taxpayer paycheck. Which, by the way, Josh Shapiro does every day. It's a taxpayer paycheck while he's not on the job, but that's another story for another day. But I think that as governor, lowering taxes, both business taxes and personal taxes, that will allow people to keep more of what they earn and decide for themselves, again, individual liberty, how those hard-earned dollars are spent, is really the best step that we can take towards returning normalcy to our economy, to our society, and to our daily lives.
When we're talking about challenges, it seems like so many times our politicians run to say higher taxes. We watched the budget that President Biden just put out. It's over $11 trillion, and he has all kinds of tax raises in there all over the place. That seems like the easy way out. What are some more innovative ways we can do it? One of the ways you just mentioned is by giving people more of their own money to spend. What are some other innovative ways you might use as governor to meet some of these challenges?
Well, you say it's the easy way out, but it's a terrible way out to raise people's taxes. It is a formula for economic disaster. All this quote-unquote government spending, which is really spending the taxpayers' money and our children and grandchildren's money, has led to hyperinflation. You see it at the gas pump, you see it at the grocery store, you see it everywhere. But I think that getting back to the good economic models is really the key for rejuvenating our economy and returning us to some normalcy, which is lower taxes, cutting taxes both on business and on individuals, having a sensible regulatory policy that is, as you know, right now a tax in and of itself because it takes you forever and a day to get a permit. The process is more punitive than it is collaborative. That costs businesses money. They pass it on to consumers. And, we've talked a little bit about cleaning up public corruption, which I think is vital to Pennsylvania's future, to our success, both as a society and to our economy as well.
Some of the challenges that we see out there, one of the challenges, obviously, tabletop issues every day. Inflation is eating into people. We just saw the first quarter numbers amount. People were still spending, but they're starting to look around and saying, okay, where can I drive today? Can I take that vacation this year? Can I afford to take that vacation this year? What about my food bill this week? Going to places where there are empty shelves still because of the supply chain problems. How does a governor kind of dig into some of that and maybe help to make some of that easier for the people of Pennsylvania?
Well, the inflation is because of too much spending, Gary. And that's not just at the federal level. Look at what has happened to Pennsylvania's budget. In this century alone, it's doubled since the turn of the century. Have individual families' incomes doubled in the last 20 years? Of course not. So government and its growth and its insatiable appetite is far outpacing the taxpayers' ability to pay for it. And so, as we've talked about before, one of the tests that I would apply to anything that I put my signature to is, can we afford it?
Right. And that's the big problem that we have. I was in a conversation with one of my friends the other day. He said, hey, you know what? The amount of pay we're getting is up 4.7%. I said, yeah, but the inflation's up 7.9%. Now, I'm not real good at math, but that sounds like a -3 to me. I'm a coach. I understood the scoreboard.
That's a challenge, Gary.
I was very quick, and I didn't even have to use my calculator or my computer. So the point is, we're saying, yeah, that's going up, but why aren't we concerned about inflation going up as well? And we look around, and it's almost like we're fighting with one arm behind our back right now. We say, oh, let's cancel out pipelines. Let's take care of taxing our shale deposits here. Let's do all that, and let's rely on somebody else. I mean, what could possibly go wrong with that kind of thinking?
Well, the energy potential boom here in Pennsylvania, Gary,
it's off the charts.
Would be off the charts.
Right.
And to be very candid, folks that don't want to see us safely and responsibly develop and use the God-given treasures that we have here, I just have to say, don't really care about the future of Pennsylvania, because this is an opportunity that would solve so many problems, take care of so many challenges, and do so much good, just incredible good. And yet there are those that want to hold it back, want to have us buying our energy from people that hate us, wanting to make us dependent upon foreign powers to heat our homes, to drive our cars, etc. There's just no sense whatsoever to that notion.
You know, it's amazing to me when we come around, in I think you say in fits of lucidity, when we come around sometimes to reality. And I was interested when President Biden came out the other week and he said, well, we're going to tap the oil reserves. Now, I noticed he didn't say we're going to tap the air reserves or the solar reserves. We're tapping the oil reserves, which is the reality that we live in a time where we're still using that. Maybe it's a transition time, and maybe it's going to last for a long time until all those things become affordable and we're ready to handle them all. But, you know, it's amazing to me how these people know the right answers, and yet at the same time, they continue to practice the wrong agenda.
Well, how about tapping what's right underneath our soil rather than going to the the strategic oil reserves? I mean, we've got an opportunity, Gary, to do so much good for so many people, not only with high-paying jobs, but with significantly less costs to homeowners for heating their houses, to manufacturers for making things which will make the price to us lower and will provide us with products on the shelves rather than bare shelves. The whole thing, Gary, works, overcomes so many challenges, and yet the Biden administration, the woke left, want to say, don't touch fossil fuels, except, the strategic oil reserve. And that is, last time I looked, a fossil fuel.
It is. One of the biggest challenges, and we kind of end with this one today, Charlie, and I think it's really a big one. And again, we talk about governors being uniting forces. You look at the divide that we have today, and I think some of it's overdone by the media, and I would be the first to say that. But I think we have a divide today for people where we go to the easy answers. We go into our comfort zone instead of saying, how do we solve solutions? How do we get to win and win? You know, win and loss is the part you're in right now. Someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, someone's going to be governor, someone's not. But at the end of the day, when you come in, how do you win for all Pennsylvanians, be they Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, whatever they call themselves? How do you go about uniting that? That's a really big thing, and we haven't seen that in a while.
Well, I think you do it a couple of ways. And, I began my career, as you know, working for Ronald Reagan.
Right.
And he used to get accused of being overly simplistic in his solutions to real challenges. And he said, they are simple. They're just not easy. And so you just talked about the easy answers. The easy answers aren't what we're looking for.
Right.
We've got to roll up our sleeves together. We've got to do the tough work. We've got to do it together because that unites us. When we're all pulling on the same oar, we're all in the same boat. We all recognize the challenges that face each of us, and we want to have a common understanding of what the best solutions are, then go to work together. And I think the governor's job is to convince the people of Pennsylvania that this is the best path forward, that we can do this together, that we can provide prosperity for everybody if we work together, because the united we stand, divided we fall mantra is really in the front of my vision every single day, Gary, because we are too deeply divided. We need to bring our people back together. That takes real leadership, and that's what I hope to provide.
And I hope we can start galvanizing around some of these challenges and realize that there is a truth. It's not my truth or your truth. There is a truth, whether we particularly like it or not, or whether it's helpful to an agenda or not. Politics ought to be off the table. Policy ought to be on the table. And that's maybe the biggest challenge to face right now. One challenge that you don't have to face is knowing Charlie's number, because you can give him a call anytime. And I always segue into that at the end. You're the one guy that's put it out there for everybody to see throughout this whole campaign.
Well, I have, Gary, and I will once again tell everybody my personal cell phone, rings right here, is 717-877-8194. 717-877-8194. If you want to contact me, please feel free. I want to chat with you about whatever's on your mind, answer any questions you might have, take your thoughts and suggestions about the future of Pennsylvania, and just talk about overcoming the challenges that Gary and I have talked about.
And we end with that today. We're looking forward to seeing another time very, very soon. For Charlie Giroux, who's running for governor here in the state of Pennsylvania, I'm Gary Sutton.
Businessman, conservative, patriot, Charlie Giroux for governor.